Indeed, thanks. You are watching us live from Nairobi, Kenya, and this is Equatorial TV. I'm your host, Kaka Juma, and we are here today to ensure that we give you the updates on what is going on, specifically Kenya visa waiver as he has been given to South Sudan. So I have my guest, Honorable Richard Onyonga, who will be giving us more details. Remember, Richard Onyonga have been involved in many activities when it comes to South Sudan. Keeping in mind that South Sudan peace agreement was signed here in Kenya, and that is in Naivasha. So we will be keeping an eye on what is or how will the South Sudanese or any other persons of Republic of South Sudan will be enjoying the Kenya visa waivering. Specifically, we'll be also focusing on issues related to the economic, specifically economic. For instance, here in Nairobi, Kenya, South Sudan has an embassy. Now they have waived the what we call the visa. The Kenyans will be just getting in, and South Sudan also getting into Kenya and out of Kenya. So how will be the embassy of South Sudan will be affected specifically economically? Then how will this improve this relationship? Because keeping in mind yesterday the press statement from State House, that is Under Secretary from the State House of Juba, talked about now South Sudan is being involved in as one of East African community. How will this impact specifically economically, socially, and politically? So we'll be focusing on this. So in a studio or from Nairobi, Kenya, I'm being hosted, or I'm at Mr. Onyonga's office, that is member of National Assembly. So Mr. Onyonga, welcome to Equatorial TV and feel free. So let's focus first on peace that took place in Naivasha, which has brought to what is going right now on visa waivering. What is your take on this?
First of all, I want to say that it's a great opportunity to be invited by Equatorial TV to come and give this interview. South Sudan is really kind of part of my history. The reason for that is, for those who will remember, at one time my father was an advisor to President Moi on matters South Sudan. And really the reason for that is that my father was a classmate of President John Garang in America many years ago. And as such, when the Declaration of Principles were being signed in Naivasha, when the discussions were taking place about the South Sudanese question, Kenya was involved, and I happened to know at that time because, as I said, my father was involved directly. He's the one who used to represent President Moi in Naivasha. Then, as you fast forward, then my father died. At some point, I then became a member of parliament, and I was appointed the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Kenya. And then I now came in when the South Sudanese were going to have a referendum. As the referendum was taking place, I was tasked with the responsibility of organizing a group of members of parliament from the East African community. We had to run around. We got members from Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya had the largest delegation. I remember we came and we were holding the rallies, supporting and encouraging the South Sudanese to vote for the separation, which then took place, and South Sudan eventually became independent. So it's an exercise I have been involved in. Your president, current president, Salva Kiir, I know him personally. He knows me. We have engaged during the referendum. In fact, I used to visit the office and they would tell us what to do, how to do it. Your Deputy President Riek Machar is somebody we also know each other with, because at some point when Riek would come to Nairobi, I would be sent to go and pick him from the airport as a deputy minister. So that somehow has been part of my political life. On the Kenyan government waivering the fees, visa fees on the South Sudanese, and the South Sudan government reciprocating, this is something that we should have done 10 years ago. In fact, when South Sudan became independent, one of the issues, one of the recommendations of President Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga, what was being discussed at that time was that we needed to remove the visa fees, open up the Kenyan border for the South Sudanese community, and make sure that we encourage, because it was a young country that it was growing and it was coming in. Then at that time, I think the South Sudan government wanted to settle in first and organize itself in terms of putting structures and making sure that you begin to formalize tax revenue collection and all that. Eventually, it has come to pass. I would like to, first of all, thank President Uhuru for agreeing to waive the visa fees for the South Sudanese people. And I also want to thank the government of South Sudan for reciprocating. The truth is, the other issue that came in, I think it was around 2013, was when Sudan was now being admitted as a member of the East African Community. What it means is that members of the South Sudanese community can come to Nairobi. They don't have to pay any visa fee to come to Nairobi. As you know, the history of Kenya and South Sudan is a long history. As you know, that members of the South Sudan family are very many in Kenya. I think we have been a country supporting them even when they were in refugee camps. After independence, I think we really never had major incidents in terms of our diplomacy. And for me, as a member of parliament now, I'm happy that the relationship is becoming much stronger, and our two countries will grow, because really, I think we are more like brothers than even being distant cousins. The history, we are neighbors, our geography, our culture. I mean, we are nearly the same people. Yes.
Honorable Onyonga, let's now touch the relationship. Now you have cemented the relationship, and now South Sudan is among the East African community.
Yes.
So, what will be the meaning of this waiver, the visa waivering fee, specifically effect to the South Sudan embassy, specifically in terms of taxes? They used to acquire some fees from there in order to maintain the embassy.
Visa fees really don't generate a lot of revenue for any country. I can give you an example. I think the money that we collect, for example, in the Kenyan embassy in London, for anybody who wants to travel to Nairobi, it is not even able to pay the salaries of the employees in the Kenyan embassy in London. The money that is there every year is close to about 200 million Kenyan shillings, which is not a lot of money. But I think when you discuss the issue of removing visa fees for any entry visas into any country, I'd rather you look at the larger picture. The larger picture is now a South Sudanese will come either through the border, whether it's in Malaba, whether it is from Lodwar, whether they're coming from JKIA or Wilson Airport. They don't need to be harassed or asked by anybody, or have you paid your visa fee? Where is your passport stamped, and things like that. For me, I think also when you remove any tax, because a visa fee is a tax, when you remove any tax on any economic activity, then you create an opportunity. And the way I look at it, the South Sudanese must begin to look at Kenya as a market. They need to start figuring out what products they can export into Kenya. They need to expand the economy. They need to develop agriculture. I'll give you a very simple example, my brother Juma. Imagine, as we speak today, Kenya is importing fish from China. How can that be? And yet Sudan, look at the Sud River. I mean, you fly through, or you fly through that river of yours and the Nile, and see fish jumping off the Nile. And yet we don't have factories, we don't have industries that are processing that fish, which can just be brought into Nairobi or brought into Kisumu and any other areas, because the lake fish which we've been using from Lake Victoria has actually dwindled and declined. So what has happened, because business people will always go and look for a product which is cheap and they're willing to sell it wherever they want. Why can't the South Sudanese and other investors, including the Kenyans, be allowed to even create partnerships, make sure that we process the fish from your country and export the fish into Kenya, create employment for your people in your country. And there's so much South Sudan can offer the East African region. So the feeling I have is that removing this waiver, or at this tax for that matter, is just one of the things that needs to be done so that we can remove the impediments and remove the barriers which were created unnecessarily. And I think it is going to be a win-win for both our countries.
Honorable, thank you for your insight. Let's talk about now the border conflict and the currency.
Yes.
So East African community, they think there is a time, for instance, if you look between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, we have what we call one common passport where you can just get in once you have the passport.
Yes.
Do you think this will bring it to South Sudan? Then let's talk about border conflict.
Yes.
Do you think this will ease and ensure that ease movements and in and out will ensure that there is secure and safer borders?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say a free market economy is what the East African community was intended to be. What is a free market economy? Allow free movement of goods, allow people to travel freely, create opportunity. My honest feeling is that South Sudan should immediately be allowed. I'm sure that if you look at the protocols, I'm sure South Sudan was allowed about 5 years ago to start the processing of being allowed to become a permanent member of the East African community. I believe the government of South Sudan is doing something about it. The passport should be a mandatory requirement, because right now, if I want to go to Tanzania, I don't have to worry because I have the East African community. And I think what is maybe holding back is the normal protocols which are required and the legal things which need to be done. South Sudanese should have an East African community passport, which allows them to come to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania. And I, as a Kenyan, I feel very comfortable. I feel very happy when I come to South Sudan, because I'm not now, the visa fee was minimal, but now since it has been removed, it should enable many Kenyans to travel to South Sudan, and it should also enable South Sudanese to travel to Kenya. This is what being African is all about. I think even when the Europeans and the colonizers created these artificial boundaries, and they made sure that we have got these challenges which make us look like we are different. Indeed, we are actually African people. We should be looking at ourselves as a people who have opportunity. We should never have these conflicts. Of course, you know, sometimes these conflicts are inevitable, but I think Africans and African people, we need to start understanding that the guns need to be silenced. We need to stop creating these unnecessary artificial crises. And basically, this crisis is all about resources, and is all about people fighting about we want this and you can't take that and all that. But I think we can agree as an African community, an East African community, to be good neighbors, to respect each other, to know that you can't take advantage of any community, to understand that we are the children of the same mother, and we can be in a position where we actually work, where we actually live. I've never felt, for example, I'll tell you, Juma, I've never felt when I'm in Eldoret and I see the large community of the South Sudanese community which lives there. They don't threaten me. They live, they do their business, they go to school, those who go into school, those who have got jobs, they work there. That's the way it should be. Even me, when I come to South Sudan, I see so many Kenyans who've been given an opportunity and they're trying to do business. As long as we observe the law of South Sudan, as long as we are able to maintain the dignity of respecting every country, I feeling. Okay. I was saying that so long as you come to Kenya, you observe the laws here, you make sure that you operate yourself with dignity and respect. That is the way that we should also carry ourselves when we are in South Sudan. And we have been telling Kenyans, when you are in any other people's country, you must respect their laws, you must respect yourself, seek the opportunity, do business, make sure that it's a win-win. We don't want in Africa where we have disputes whereby we are complaining about, oh, Tanzanians are importing too much from Kenya. Therefore, we don't want, let's close the border and Kenyans cannot come and bring their products here. Or Kenyans are exporting too much into South Sudan, and therefore they need to be stopped. That argument is weak. Why? Everything we're importing right now is from China. Who has ever gone to stop the Chinese not to bring their products into Africa? So if Kenya is exporting too many goods into South Sudan, and if Kenya is exporting too many goods into Uganda, and vice versa, what my feeling and what we have discussed as leaders is this: let us create an environment where South Sudan can also give us products which we don't have. There is so much that South Sudan has got that we don't have. So what we need is, let us not be complaining as Africans that country A and B of Africa is exporting too much to our country. And yet in reality, this country complaining has the opportunity, create an environment, put a framework, set up the factories, create an environment, all right, a business environment. You cannot, and we are not going to develop Africa if you find that as a community, all we do is war, war, war. Nobody's going to come and set up a factory worth $1 billion or 500 million US dollars or even $50 million when he knows that he can have people coming in with guns to come and beat his employees or come and kill the owners of his business. We must understand that even if we have conflict, let us agree that sometimes we must agree to sort out this conflict. And then start building countries which are going to take care of the welfare of our people. Make sure that we give our people good shelter, give them food, make sure that children are going to school, provide medical services. I mean, it is so unfortunate that in Kenya today, even when we are developed and we are a country that is regarded very highly, we are not able to have malaria tablets. Can you imagine how sad this is? And yet we have the capacity to produce the medicines in Nairobi. We can actually avail these medicines, and yet our people still keep dying of malaria, dysentery, and all these other diseases. I think Africa, we need now to change our perspective. We need to wake up and say, can we provide the basics to our people? If we are able to give these basics to our people, then Africa, I believe, will move forward.
So, indeed, for those who are watching us live, we are from Nairobi, Kenya, where we are hosting our guest, who is Honorable Richard Onyonka, former, you talked about Deputy Foreign Minister, and also he has a history of South Sudan and he understands all about South Sudan. And indeed, for those who are watching us, keep on sending them your feedback. You can check our Facebook Live. Also, we are streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, and other channels. For those people who are watching us from Canada, thank you for watching us from India, Juba, Cairo, and other countries, and Tanzania, also in Somalia. We'll be able not to read your comments, but we are hitting back on our interviews. So keeping in mind that South Sudan, Kenya has waived or has done what we call visa waiver to any person who are coming from the South Sudan. And we are here trying to shed some light on what will happen and how it will happen, specifically both socially, economically, and what we call politically. So, Mr. Honorable Richard Onyonga, when you talk about win-win situation, of late, when there's the statement came out, or when Kenyan issued the statement, most of South Sudan were in worry. The reason being, if Kenya looks at their place, how will they benefit? Because you know, when other foreigners comes, they want to do all everything. So how will this affect them? Because keeping in mind that this is now free movement, you can get in and out without being taxed on whether to pay on visa. How will this affect both negatively and positively South Sudan?
That's a very good question. It is a question that we've been dealing with in our parliament, in our Senate here in Nairobi. The question that there is this feeling that comes out that when you find people of South Sudan or when Kenyans go to South Sudan, sometimes there is hostility, there is anger that these are foreigners who have come in and they're dominating our businesses, that they are coming and taking over everything. Actually, that argument is fallacious. Let me tell you why it is fallacious. We are in Kenya, a country that got independence in 1963. If you walk around the shops in every town and every city center, any center within our country, you will see that we have Asians who do business. If you walk around Kenya, we have the Somali community. Previously, the Somali community never used to do business. They were into things here and there, transport and everything. Right now, if you go to even the hinterland and the villages, you'll find members of the Somali community selling items, they're selling products and everything. Why am I using these two cases? When an outsider comes to your country, you allow them to create the opportunity, then you learn from them. What I would wish the people of South Sudan to do is, can you learn what we do? Can you learn what Kenyans do? If you go to Rwanda, Kenyans went to Rwanda, they settled there. Many of them were hired and employed as professionals. The Kenyan educated people were in computer industry. They were into banking. When Rwanda was beginning to pick up after the genocide, the Kenyans who were hired from here went to that country. Some of them settled in. Nobody has ever had a disagreement or hatred towards those Kenyans because they settled there. What the Rwandese have done is they have learned from what Kenyans do best. In other words, what the Sudanese community needs to understand is this: your country is so big, your opportunities are so many. When you see a Kenyan walking in Juba doing some small business, don't worry about it. Understand what that Kenyan is doing. Do it better. If a Kenyan has come to Juba and has opened a hotel, don't complain that Kenyans are coming to take over, because you also have Ethiopians in Juba. You also have Eritreans in Juba. Why don't you complain about them? The reality that we have got is, when foreigners come and settle in your country, don't complain that these settlers have come, they have now taken over everything, they are now managing our economy. No, they don't run your government. The Kenyans don't collect your revenues. Create opportunities, allow these Kenyans to run the business, so long as they observe the law, so long as they're good citizens. Let them learn how to operate within your country. Then let the South Sudanese citizens learn what we do. If a Kenyan let these Kenyans set up a fish factory. Let the Kenyan operate that fish factory, but let the South Sudanese understand and learn how this Kenyan is doing this business. This is how we've learned how the Indian community came to Kenya, how the Indians were building these buildings you see in Nairobi, how the Indians started the businesses of running restaurants, running hotels, hardware shops. We never said, kick them out, we don't want to have them here. I mean, you see what happened in Zimbabwe. The moment you start kicking people out of your country because you believe that these people are taking advantage and you believe that these people should be kicked out, so now you can have a monopoly, and now you can have your things to yourselves. There is no country that is going to be independent and doesn't need external impact, external influence, that doesn't need people who are exposed, doesn't need investors coming from different places. My honest observation is that even with the removal of these visa fees, it does not hurt South Sudan. Let South Sudan create a framework where business people can come, set up a business so that their businesses are secure and protected. So that if I come from Nairobi and I come with $2 million and I want to set up a factory making timber, set up the framework, have the rules and regulations which make sure that this is done properly, make sure that I don't just come and cut your trees in South Sudan as if there is no environmental degradation, have the regulations which allow me Like in Kenya, we do. You cut the trees, yes, but you plant them again, so that there is a continuation of what is going on. If I come and set up a fish factory, allow me to set up that fish factory, give me legal and economic framework how I do it, allow me to involve South Sudanese people also. You can have a law, like in our country, there's a law which says that if you want to come and invest, you can take in an investor from the mother country who takes 50% of the shares, and you as the person who has come in with the resources from an outside country, you bring another 50%. But my interest as an investor who has come must be protected. Because again, let us be very sincere. We have had cases in other countries where somebody comes and he wants to invest, and once you've invested money, then you find people are coming with guns. They're telling you you have to pack up and leave because this business, after all, you are a foreigner and things like that. A country will never develop if it does not operate within the rule of law. So where we are is that, for me, I see South Sudan as a country of opportunity. It's a country which has so much resource, has so much land, can grow so much food, can do everything that needs to be. South Sudan can produce its own cement because you have what the products which make cement. South Sudan has got so many minerals. You people have got oil. And I know these things have been said over and over again, but the truth is, South Sudan needs now to pick itself and understand that expectations we've been having about South Sudan as a country, even when you're coming into the East African community, is that we must now begin to work, produce. We must now create employment in our countries. We must have food for our people to eat. You must provide hospital services. You must provide medicines, and you must be prudent. We must be able, as African countries, to stop corruption. We must be able to take care of the little resources we have and make sure that these resources go down to the villages and make sure that we change the lives of our people. When you have crises, the wars that you're having, I mean, right now you can see we are having a problem in Ethiopia. The issues we have in Ethiopia, even when we call them, excuse me, tribal, all right, where you have the Oromos fighting with all these other communities which exist. The truth is, what people are fighting about is resources. Can't we sit and talk? Can't we agree? I mean, why is it that the winner must take all? And that is why I'm very proud in Kenya, because in Kenya, you notice that because we introduced devolution, where resources are distributed fairly and equitably to all the regions of this country. This is something we are proud of. The question I would ask is, what can South Sudan learn from us? How do we take our resources? How are resources cascaded and taken down to the village? What are these resources doing? I think this is something that I expect South Sudan to do, and I expect the leadership of South Sudan to understand that there are certain things Kenya can learn, and there are certain things South Sudan can learn from Kenya. And that is the only way we are going to move forward.
Indeed, it is a very interesting statement from Honorable Richard Onyonga, who is just giving more statements on what has happened to South Sudan and Kenya relationship. So for those guys, for our viewers who are watching us, we are live from Nairobi, Kenya, and we have our guest, Honorable Richard Onyonga, who is a member of National Assembly and the former deputy, you say the Foreign Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Kenya. So keeping in mind that most of the statements that I normally get from those people who have experience from South Sudan is that South Sudan is the land of opportunity. Last time when we hosted an ambassador for South Sudan here in Kenya, that is Ambassador Chol MU Ajong, he told us that peace and opportunity is what normally requires. So once you have the peace, it means that everything will just come in. So keeping in mind that when you are in peaceful mode, investors will come in. Also, our honorable beloved guest, that is Honorable Richard Onyonga, is also telling us about South Sudan. And he has the history of South Sudan, all about South Sudan and how South Sudan looks like. Because once you're deputy minister, when you are deputy for the foreign, that is Minister of Foreign Affairs, you will be having more information of what is going in and out of several countries, keeping in mind that South Sudan signed here peace agreement in Naivasha, and Honorable Richard Onyonga's father was one of their delegations who represented, and keeping in mind that Kenyan government also gave Honorable Richard Onyonga the same opportunity to exercise, and also led some crews to ensure that peace and agreements were entered in while South Sudan was struggling for their independence. So Honorable Richard Onyonga, recently South Sudan celebrated 10th years anniversary since they got independent, and the president of Salva Kiir talked about the government, the South Sudan healed from where it was. Do you think the statement of the people in relationship to what is going right now, where Kenyan government have decided to give the waiver for visa? So when the country heals, it means that investors will come in. What can you talk about the situations that is Kenya's life is very tough. For when you're coming out of Kenya, you want to invest here in Kenya, you might face some challenges. And now, going back to the president's statements and coming here in Kenya, what do you think that in South Sudan need to do to ensure that keeping, and you talked about the policy, some frameworks need to be built. What about now those people who are coming to Juba coming to invest in Kenya? Do you think the life will be easy, or what is your take on that?
I think you've asked maybe 2 or 3 questions which make sense. Let me start with the statement of President Salva. For some of us, South Sudan is a country that has been really painful. Painful because we understood, and we have always understood, that South Sudan has been through historical injustice, through historical maltreatment, mistreatment for a very long time. Then South Sudan somehow, incredibly so, Africa as a continent, and particularly the East African countries, and I really want to say that Kenya, I'm proud that Kenya really played a big role in trying to make sure that the South Sudanese become independent. But you see, history again teaches us some things, and history sometimes makes us to remember, and sometimes history makes us not remember. Because of the historical issues that have been part and parcel of South Sudanese history, because of the fact that you have had these tribal quote-unquote issues, which have been created by the Westerners, which were issues that were cemented and artificially made to be what our challenge is. I think for me, the people of South Sudan really, and especially the leadership, must sit down and agree to talk and agree to stop the guns. You can fight and fight for 50 years, 80 years, 180 years. The truth and the reality is, at the end of all this fighting, you must stop. So why fight for 60 years and then come and talk on the last year? The truth is, South Sudan has enough for everybody. What the people of South Sudan need to do is remove the elements of mistrust. Are we together, Mr. Juma? Remove the elements of mistrust. And me, I believe, and this is my experience because I worked in foreign relations, the South Sudanese problem is the fight about resources. Why can't the South Sudan people sit down, the leadership, the president, his deputy president, Riek Machar, and all the other stakeholders, and just agree? They say, listen, what money do we make? We make this. What do we get from our oil? It is this. What can we get from our taxes? Why are we not getting money from tax? If Kenyans are exporting things to South Sudan, are they paying the tax? All right, and that is why you notice I keep saying this issue of visa fees. There's nothing. The amount of where the money is, remove the visa fee, allow as many Kenyans to bring goods to South Sudan to sell. Meanwhile, let the South Sudanese government set up a framework which allows private individuals. I mean, the question you have asked, are South Sudanese going to find it easy to do business in Nairobi? Boss, if the people from Turkey are here doing business, the Chinese are all over. They are selling from clothes to nails to iron sheets to they even sell timber. The Chinese come, they take timber from South Sudan, ship it to China, go and process it, bring it and sell it in Nairobi. How shallow can we be? I mean, what is it? What is wrong with us? You see, so there are no challenges. There's nobody who's going to stop us. You know, long time ago, I'm sure you are aware, a South Sudanese would walk in the streets and is asked, who are you? Where is your ID? You are a foreigner. That nonsense is not there anymore. And in fact, if a police officer stops you here in Nairobi and is telling you to go and explain why you're in Nairobi, he might most probably lose his job, because now that is not what we want to look at. Now we want a situation where we encourage the South Sudanese to come and set up a business they want, bring in the money if you have it, and do that. We also want that to happen with a Kenyan going to South Sudan. We want the professional bodies, the Law Society of Kenya. We want Sudanese who are lawyers to come and practice in Nairobi, open an office in Nairobi. We want Kenyans to be allowed to open an office in Juba. We want engineers who are South Sudanese. You know, South Sudan are some of the best educated people in the world. Come and open an engineering firm in Nairobi. Yeah? If you want to tender for government projects, get a Kenyan partner or get some employees of yours who will help you get a government work, and you do the work and you get paid. These are the things we want, and this is the East Africa that we want. This is the neighborliness that we want. This is the friendship that we want.
Thank you so much, Honorable Richard Onyonga. So if we now let's go to what we call currency, the commonness of currency. So it has been a very hard task to East African community to come up with one currency that will ensure we go by this. So if we say let's use Kenyan shillings, we do this. Do you think this will be also an impact to South Sudan? Then let's talk about the border crossing of late COVID-19 and border issues. How will this be issued out, keeping in mind that Kenyan president have been given a mandate to be the leader of East African community? So do you think the border conflict will end? Then how will this East African community derives on what we call one common currency?
You know, initially the discussions about the East African community had, I think, if I'm not wrong, we had a 5-prong approach on what was done: remove barriers, introduce a common passport. We were supposed to have a free movement of people, and the 4th item, it's not 5, even I've forgotten, was have a common currency. My belief is the common currency is coming. I don't think that it is something. It is, you see, the setting up the protocols on the East African community as a body, it had timelines, and the common currency was actually going to be the last one. All right. My conviction and belief is that if you have a common currency that is going to be regulated, which means, of course, the reason why the delay is there is we're going to have to create what is called the East African Central Bank. And, you know, if you have a common currency for being a region of 7 or 8 countries, you must have the central bank, which is going to set up the rates, which is going to monitor the fluctuations so that the currency doesn't collapse. And most likely the currency will be pegged onto the dollar. But this is something that is being done. I believe maybe by next year, if I'm not wrong, that should have come into effect. Because when you have a common currency, and now because you remember we have the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which has been signed, then we now want to slowly move in where, for example, we can have an East African currency, then you can have a South African currency, you can have a West African currency, and a North African currency. So at the end of it, all these currencies will be merged so that we also have our own currency, which is like the dollar, which is going to operate within our region. Because of the signing of the Africa Free Trade Agreements with the African continent countries, there's a possibility that having free trade moving fast, having countries moving barriers and removing duties on goods which are being imported from fellow African countries, having a common currency is going to make it easier. I think the other issue that I look at, and the question you asked me, the people of South Sudan should not worry about what happens if they join the East African community. I can leave Nairobi and go to Tanzania. The Tanzanians have a different law regarding land. All right. For example, in Tanzania, you cannot buy land, but you can use government application where they lease the land to you for a period of time. I think these are laws which we observe. All right. And the South Sudanese should also introduce their own laws so that if I come as a Kenyan and I want to do farming, you can say, because you are a foreigner and because you are an investor, you cannot buy our land with cash and you cannot take it. And after all, you know, even if I buy that land, I'll never take it. It's going to remain in South Sudan. But you can set up rules which say, we will allow you, when you take the land, you can only lease it, for example, for 20 years. After 20 years, you can do another lease, or 30 years, whatever it is. That is what countries do. So imagine if I live here, I can go to Tanzania, and I am able to lease government land, and I plant whatever that I want. If I want to set up a company in Tanzania, as a Kenyan, I am allowed to go and set up a company in Tanzania. There are certain taxes that I must pay. But Tanzania has also created a buffer in the sense that there are certain taxes that are removed when you are an investor from outside their country, that they protect me. So that, for example, you know, the largest investors in Tanzania is Kenya. All right. So why is it so? Because we have been given certain advantages and we are able to go and invest in Tanzania, and they protect our interests. Sometimes we fight over the same issue, like what is South Sudan? And then, you know, another thing that Tanzania has done, they have said, if you are talking about you're coming to set up your factory here, and this factory is supposed to do, first of all, please make sure that the person you're going to employ in this factory is a local. So many of the businesses which Kenyans have opened in Tanzania, the majority of their employees are Tanzanians. There are exceptions where you'll find they might say, no, the financial controller, we want him to be a Kenyan, allow us. The Southern Sudanese legislature can pass laws which actually create an environment where the interests of the South Sudanese as a citizen are protected and the interests of the investor are also protected. In order, the other thing we can do, Juma, is you can take the Kenyan law and mirror it in, we can agree, because if you come to Kenya, what is it that Kenya has done to encourage investors to come and invest? We also have our challenges because many companies, some of the companies have been saying, oh, we're going to leave because, for example, your electricity is too expensive. For example, your byproducts are too expensive. What is it that you can do to allow companies to come and invest? What environment do you create? What infrastructure do you give them to make sure that you succeed? That is what South Sudan needs to look at. And this is what we need to look at as the East African community. But we cannot pick a common trend that our being African becomes a disadvantage. That when you see a Ugandan who's going to South Sudan, you get angry because he's a black person, but he's from Uganda. When you see a Kenyan, you get angry. When you see a South Sudanese in Nairobi, you get angry. We must try very hard to destroy that aspect of being an African. We are brothers. We happen to have been born where we are. God has made us neighbors. And the best we can do, we have so much opportunity. We can do so much business. We can create so much things. We can have universities in Juba, which are training students from South Sudan. We can have South Sudanese coming here, setting up businesses where we also learn from the South Sudanese. As I've said, it's a community that is highly sophisticated, highly educated. They are all over the world. They're exposed. And another thing, Juma, I was going to say is, once there is peace in Sudan, once there is agreement, once people talk, once people forgive each other, all these resources exist globally. The South Sudanese diaspora is worth billions of dollars. In fact, one of the things that has happened to us in Kenya today, our foreign reserves are so much. Why? Because the Kenyan diaspora is bringing in remittances from abroad. So much money. We are at about 25 billion shillings every month. So at the end of the year, the Kenyan diaspora is bringing in something like 250 billion Kenyan shillings into our economy. In other words, the diaspora has overtaken agriculture and tourism. So if you are able to have the sort of people that you have, most South Sudanese are extremely well-trained, well-educated, sophisticated people. The only problem with South Sudan is your politics. Is there a way that the leadership of South Sudan can fix your politics? Even as we have challenges in Kenya, we're always quarreling. 2007, we fought each other. But we decided to talk. We decided to solve the problem. And our country has been moving. We are always fighting each other here. We want this changed. We want that. But at least we try to make sure that we don't destroy the country. My argument and my point is this, Juma. How can we take the Republic of South Sudan be a country where people are willing to talk with each other and not act each other? How can people forgive each other from the historical injustices so that you have a country that is peaceful, so that the cake that people are fighting about can be shared? You don't have to eat everything. You can agree to allow your brother have something small, your other brother something small, your brother on that side, and everybody is reasonably comfortable. And then you move the country in a direction where it becomes a peaceful, becomes a democratic, becomes a lovely country. I mean, look at the opportunity of tourism in South Sudan. I mean, you have every animal in the world in South Sudan. You have national parks. Why don't tourists come? Who wants to come to a country where guns are shot every night? All right. So for me, my pledge and my wish to my brothers in South Sudan, I really want to make a very special request to President Salva Kiir, a man I know, a very, very humble man that I worked with, was incredibly welcoming when we were in South Sudan. My brother and leader, our senior, Riek Machar. The politics is what fixes a country. If you get your politics wrong, you mess up your country. If you get the politics right, you fix the country. And by the way, in politics, there is nothing where the win is all. The politics must be a win-win. You take small here, the other side takes small. The other side takes small, you lose sometimes, you win sometimes. You lose sometimes, and you balance like that as the country moves forward. At some point, the country will be on safe ground, and the country will become one of the most successful countries in Africa.
So, thank you so much, Honorable Nyonka. Indeed, you have a very wonderful statement, keeping in mind that you also have the out of South Sudan and how it looks like. And I'm glad you've worked with some of the South Sudanese guys. So for our viewers or guys who are watching us live, we are from Nairobi, Kenya, and we are at Honorable Richard Onunga's office, where we just come and we would like, and we have heard most of the statements from Honorable Richard Onyonga, who is an MP or member of National Assembly. So, Honorable Richard, let's now twist on the current position of our President Uhuru Kenyatta in East African community, and what he has just done recently in South Sudan. Do you think he has an impact, keeping in mind to those who were there before him? Or what is your take on the position he is holding and the work he has just shown recently for few days or some few years he has been in office for East African community?
I will start by saying this. If I'm not wrong, and I stand to be corrected, but I think I'm correct on this one, all the presidents of Kenya, I think all of them have had, except of course Uhuru's father was President Kenyatta, who started the presidency of this country after 1963. All the presidents of Kenya have always had a very passionate, very personal relationship with South Sudan. President Daniel Arap Moi, I remember at some point, frequently, would always have meetings with Dr. John. He was always consulting, he was always asking him. To me, President Moi was really the Mandela of the South African liberation movement, and Moi was the father of the liberation movement of South Sudan. He gave the material, moral, and physical support to the South Sudanese leadership. When President Kaki came in, that is when I was appointed a deputy minister of foreign affairs in his ministry. We were constantly on the table and on the phone and engaged with, at that time, the minister was Honorable Moses Wetangula, who's now a senator. The PS, a man called Mr. Twitha Mwangi. These were individuals I worked with, and I can tell you, South Sudan was on the table, was being discussed on a daily basis. There was a deliberate feeling to monitor what was going on so that we didn't let down the South Sudanese. And I remember there was a time when there was the small debate after the death of Dr. John. There was the question of whether South Sudan should really secede and create its own country, or whether it should remain within Sudan as a whole. And when the Kenyan government looked at it, consulted heavily, there was a lot of international pressure for South Sudan to become an independent African country. But President Kibaki put his foot down. And as I said earlier, I am actually really proud that one of my happiness was to be in Juba campaigning for the referendum. The referendum passed, then we came back, then the elections were held. I remember when President Salva Kiir was being sworn in, we were just crying. I mean, it was a very emotional time for many of us. Then after that, President Uhuru has come. President Uhuru has not pushed much onto the South Sudanese question, for the simple reason that sometimes when presidents come in, because of the timelines and because of the domestic politics, sometimes international relations is pushed far back onto the corners. But he has maintained a friendship. I would have wished that he had kept President Salva Kiir closer, right? That I've always hoped that he would have. I remember during President Kibaki's time, I think President Salva Kiir was in Nairobi once every month, because I will always be at the airport going to pick him. So President Uhuru didn't push the relationship far stronger as I would have wished. But I think in general terms, he seized with the issue. At the East African community level, he has supported South Sudan. I think everything that South Sudan is going to request, you will get. And I believe that Kenyans are sensitive, as I said earlier, and they are careful about how to handle the South Sudanese friendship and the South Sudanese neighborliness relations that we have. So Uhuru hasn't pushed so much the way Moi did and the way Kibaki did. But I know that President Uhuru is seized and is engaged to make sure that South Sudan, I know he loves quiet diplomacy. For example, I've heard that he has been criticized for trying to encourage the side which has been against President Salva Kiir, or rather the Riek Machar side. But I don't think that is what he has done. I think Sudan is a very delicate matter to handle. And I think Uhuru has tried to balance in such a manner that South Sudan does not end up being an enemy of Kenya, and Kenya doesn't end up being an enemy of South Sudan, because we depend on each other. There's so many Kenyans in South Sudan, there's so many South Sudanese here. Our history is intertwined. We have been friends for as long as we can be. So I think it is a very sensitive issue, but he must be seized, and he must be in his mind that South Sudan needs peace. South Sudan needs help and support where they can. And if there are any incentives that South Sudan needs in order for it to becoming a stable, democratic, independent country, then I believe he'll make sure he gives them the opportunity.
Indeed, it is a very interesting statement since we started our sessions, and Honorable Richard Onyonga is a very wonderful indeed. For our viewers who are watching, as you can just estimate who he is, a very intelligent, obvious, well-informed, and so well, every corner is there, and he can give you the whatever angle of the story you wish. So I believe through the entrance of Honorable Richard Onyonga, we'll be able to go get to President Uhuru Kenyatta so that we get also the insights and the view, the sentiments on what will happen. Also, we will be looking for another honorable, that's Senator Moses Wetangula, and also Honorable, that is Musyoka, Kalonzo Musyoka, who has been also been agitating and also spearheading for South Sudanese issues. So, Honorable, thank you for what you've given us. As we wind up, I just want to get your last sentiments and our interviews as we keep in touch. And this is Equatorial TV. For those guys who are watching us, thank you for watching us. We are live from Nairobi, and I'm your host, Kaka Juma, with my honorable guest, Honorable Richard Onyonga, a member of National Assembly. So what is your take as we finalize this stage?
My last comment maybe will be political. My experience in politics, and I've been a member of parliament for close to 18 years, is that politics is the art of the possible. And when it looks impossible, when you are at the highest amount of pain in politics, that is the reason why you should have the highest amount of courage to negotiate, discuss, and sit down with your enemy. I believe that South Sudan has the capacity to become the driving engine of Africa. First, the landmass you have. Second, the resources that you have. Third, the human capacity that you have. As I said, the problem with South Sudan, to me, is the politics. So I would really want to ask the political elite, the president, his deputy, and all the other members of parliament, of South Sudanese parliament, and the leadership, could you please try and fix your politics? Could you please try and forgive each other for the sake of your country? There is nothing that is so difficult and impossible that cannot be done. And if you find that, for example, these are things we talk about, and I'm always very candid. If the people of South Sudan find that the problem they're having is the issue of the presidency, you have got many states which exist. Then why don't you make the states stronger? Why don't you devolve more resources to the states, and then but make sure that the presidency exists, but it must be a strong presidency also, so that then you can hold your country together. Why is it that South Sudan, every time you talk peace and people agree to come together, you reach a stage whereby again there is a backtracking, and we tend to see this beautiful, wonderful country again wanting to act as if it wants to go back into war. I believe the country can build itself. The leadership can forgive each other, and I really wish them well. For us, for me as a person who's been always involved with matters South Sudan, with my minister Moses Wetangula, with Mzee Kalonzo Musyoka, Prime Minister Raila, all these people, Kibaki, all these people, including people like my father, who was completely engaged on matters South Sudan. He always believed and he trusted that the South Sudanese would be a people who would love to create a country where they work together, where they forgive each other, where they hold democratic elections which are free and fair, and where they have a country which is prosperous for their people. It is sad to see how our people suffer, and yet we have the capacity of transforming or having transformative leadership and changing where the country is at. I really wish the people of South Sudan the best. Thank you.
Indeed, it is a statement full of wisdom. And for those people like Professor Tsudi who are watching us, will tell you It is a speech from an intelligent man and an intellectual person. So thank you for watching us. It was a live session from Nairobi, Kenya, and this is Equatorial TV. We had been just discussing something regarding the Kenya visa waiver that have been just a statement that was issued on 27 and 28, keeping in mind that the Republic of Kenya have waived what we call the visa payments or visa fee, and we are still getting more information or more sentiments from various Kenyan leaders, and I believe very soon we will be joined by the South Sudanese ambassador, that is Chola M.U. Ajong, and they will be also giving us more as we get more statements, and we'll also be looking for through the assistance from Honorable Richard Onyonga, we'll be able to reach to Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula so that we give more statements so that we see the Kenyan side and the reactions from Kenyan side. For all crews that have been behind of these stories, that is my production manager. That is a production manager Robert and studio manager Ray Dankedi from India. And for those guys who are watching us, our beloved viewers, thank you for watching us. It was a very wonderful and interesting session since we started with our beloved guest, Honorable Richard Onyonga. Until next time, let's meet. This was Equatorial TV live from Nairobi, Kenya, and I was your host, Kaka Juma. Juma.